That's me. Right, this is a very short video because it's a very small diorama of a stream, a very small stream, and I'm using a knife rather than a hot wire tool because I couldn't be bothered to plug the hot wire tool in. Anyway, extruded polystyrene stuck together with Gorilla Glue, covered in Sculptamold, and I will say again, make sure it goes on quite thick because otherwise it will take about 20 years to dry. Get it on at the right consistency and it goes off in about an hour. You'll get used to what the consistency should be. Smooth it all over, use a wet finger if needs be, like this. Now I'm using plaster of Paris for the stream bed. I have no idea why, since it's going to be covered in pebbles and stones, but I might have had a different idea at the time, I don't know. Anyway, continue smoothing over the Sculptamold, and now I'm just putting some brown paint and sand on. It's kind of a textured base, and the brown is so that the soil and grout that I use in a moment doesn't show any white through it if I miss any bits. I use diluted Mod Podge and then go over that with my soil and grout mixture, which is my standard kind of ground cover, and then some more soil and stones pushed into the bank because this is a very kind of realistic eroded looking bank. More Mod Podge matte diluted and some more small stones to cover the base of the stream. Now I used 2 layers of the Mod Podge matte to make sure it stuck absolutely, but I had to leave it to dry for about 48 hours, and I misted it all with isopropyl alcohol and scenic glue, which is 1 part matte medium, 3 parts water and a drop of dishwasher rinse aid. Clay dust, which I used as a highlight for the soil, not putting it on the edges of the banks though, and then diluted raw sienna over the base of the stream there, and then highlighting the stones again. Now weed roots, because as I said this is quite a realistic looking riverbank and you always have roots sticking out of the banks. I used weed roots, although of course you could use grass roots or any small plant. These are just the right size, stuck on with tacky glue, which holds them quite fast actually. And now isopropyl alcohol and scenic glue. I don't know why I covered up the base there, maybe the paint was still wet. Woodland Scenic's Fine Turf. The green blend and the burnt grass just makes the algae look on the bottom of the stream. I don't know how well it came out in the end actually. Mod Podge matte, which I use as my basing glue for my static grass. So I use Nock static grass. This is the 6mm stuff, beige and wild grass. And I use a Pico static grass applicator, the micro one, which is good because these are micro dioramas. Look at how satisfying that is, isn't it? It's one of my favourite parts of the whole process. And then you blend in the edges with a bit of 2mm, and I've got Pico 2mm, and I use a bit of a darker colour here because it lends a bit of a kind of a depth to the whole model. And then I go over the edges again with Woodland Scenic's Fine Turf, blending in and blending in, a few shadows and a bit more depth, as I say, represent a few weeds, etc., a bit of soil, and then the coarse turf from Woodland Scenics, which represents bushes, low-lying shrubs, etc. I don't tend to go bigger than the coarse turf, but on this occasion I used some of the underbrush as well. I don't use the clump foliage usually, it's just, well, too clumpy really. Ground up dried leaves as usual from my garden, sifted into a fine grade, and then spray all that, give it a good soaking with isopropyl alcohol and scenic glue again, and then mop up any pooling bits. Now I'm just about to pour the river, so I'm using masking tape sealed with wood glue. And for this diorama I used Liquitex glazing medium, which was new for me, but I didn't want it to be a smooth surface. I wanted it to be slightly lumpy, and I know this stuff kind of shrinks. A bit of acrylic ink in there, raw umber, just, I don't know how effective that was, but this little part of the video here I actually posted on Instagram, and at the time of posting this video it's got about 15,000 views, which is quite extraordinary to me, but I guess people were wondering what the hell I was doing pouring all this white stuff over there. People said, "Oh, are you pouring glue over it?" No, it's glazing medium, and it goes clear, as you can see. Mod Podge gloss to create the ripples, applied with the paintbrush initially, and then blown around with an air can, and that creates very realistic ripples. Twiggy plant things. I don't know, are they these big weeds that you see beside the road? I got these from beside the road. You know, they're dead at this time of the year, so you pick off bits. They're quite delicate. You put a bit of polyfibre sparingly over it, then some spray adhesive, and then some Woodland Scenics coarse turf. I used mid-green, and then some knock leaves over those, and they make very good kind of saplings, or maybe not quite saplings, I don't know, what are they? The teenagers of trees. I'm not entirely sure what you'd call them, the in-betweeny trees anyway, but they do look very realistic, as you can see, and there's enough of them. I've even got some bigger ones in here which I made from actual twigs. There's one going in there. It took ages to plant all those trees. A few knock leaves going on there, a bit of coarse turf, a few Woodland Scenics flowers, Woodland Scenics fine leaf foliage. Give it a dust off, give it a good soaking with isopropyl and scenic glue again, and there we're done. I told you it was a short video. Oh, that's a very dark photo, isn't it? But I think that was the point, because it's meant to be a woodland forest stream. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks ever so much for watching again. See you next time. Cheers.